The day my own child told me I was unsafe. I wasn't in her house screaming. I wasn't slamming doors or throwing anything. I was standing in my kitchen in Ohio, wearing the same faded robe I've had since my husband was alive, holding a 5-page letter that used my name like it was a diagnosis. Dear Mom, this is a no-contact letter written with my therapist. By page 2, my hands were shaking so hard I had to sit down. By page 3, I wasn't sure if I was reading a description of me or a stranger I'd never met. By page 4, she threatened to file a harassment order if I replied. If you've never felt your own child erase you in writing, I hope you never do. Before I tell you what was in that letter and what I finally decided to do with it, do me a small favor. If you like listening to long, honest family stories while you cook, clean, or lie in bed at night, tap the like button and subscribe so YouTube knows to bring you back to Aunt Ruby's voice every week. Now, pull up a chair. My name is Elaine. I'm 70 years old. If you ask Google, that makes me a boomer, which is apparently an insult now. I live in a small town in Ohio, in a house that smells like coffee and old photo albums. I have one daughter, Rachel, who lives 3 states away, a son-in-law I barely know, and 2 grandchildren I've never met in person. That last part is the sentence that still wakes me up at 3 in the morning. I wasn't a perfect mother. I don't know any who are. I yelled sometimes. I spanked a handful of times when she was little, back when every parenting book said a firm hand was necessary. I worked more than I wanted to because my husband's heart gave out early and somebody had to keep the lights on. I also packed lunches, sewed Halloween costumes, and sat through every school play in those awful metal chairs that make your back hurt for 3 days. I wish I could tell you there was some obvious explosion before the letter, some fight you could replay like a movie where you see the moment everything breaks. There wasn't. There were years. Years of small misunderstandings, comments that landed wrong, a world that changed faster than I did. There were holidays where Rachel arrived already tight as a pulled rubber band. Conversations where every sentence felt like a test I hadn't studied for. If you're my age, maybe you know this feeling. One day your little girl stops asking you how to do things and starts telling you all the ways you did them wrong. It started, I think, with therapy talk. Our dynamic, I would repeat, like I'd been handed a new appliance with no manual. I remembered rocking her through fevers, waiting in parking lots during youth group, sitting up till midnight worried when she missed curfew. Both things can be true, I've learned, but back then I didn't know how to hold 2 truths at once. So I did what my generation does when we're scared. I got defensive. I did the best I could, I'd say. She'd shut down. We'd both leave the conversation feeling more alone than when we started. Then she met Mark. Mark is polite, soft-spoken, the kind of man who reads labels in the grocery store and says "actually" a lot. He is also, from what I can tell, a man who likes problems that can be solved with lists and boundaries. I think for Rachel, marrying him felt like climbing into a boat with someone who promised he'd never let her drown. We had a few small blow-ups over the years. Me making a joke about kids these days when she talked about gentle parenting. Her telling me I couldn't post a picture of the baby on Facebook without a signed document and a 40-minute lecture on consent. Thanksgiving, where I said, "Are you sure you need another therapist?" We did not speak for 3 weeks after that. But we always came back. A text, a photo of the kids, a meme. Until the letter. It arrived on a Tuesday in March. I remember because it was still cold enough that my hands ached when I carried in the mail. There was a thick envelope with my daughter's return address. For a moment, my heart lifted. Pictures, I thought. Maybe drawings from the kids. Maybe an early Mother's Day card. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, the way I have done for every letter I've ever loved. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might be sick. I started reading. My own name, Mom, sat at the top of the page like a funeral announcement. She listed, in bullet points, the ways I had consistently failed her as a parent. I weaponized guilt by reminding her of sacrifices I'd made. I was controlling and intrusive when I asked too many questions about her marriage or her children. She brought up fights I barely remembered. The time I yelled, "You're being dramatic," when she cried over a breakup in 10th grade. The time I told her to stop making everything about you when she was anxious about a cousin's wedding. The time I said, "You don't know what real problems are," when she called me from college crying because she was overwhelmed. Reading it all in a row felt like someone had taken a highlighter to every worst moment of my mothering and stapled them together. Just my sins. Primary trigger, like I was an allergy or a loaded gun. She continued. For the sake of my mental health and the well-being of my family, I am establishing no contact with you for the foreseeable future. This means, do not call me, do not text me, do not email me, do not send letters, cards, or gifts. Do not attempt to contact my children. There was more. A harassment order from my own child. My ears started ringing. At the bottom of page 4, she added, "I understand you may have your own perspective or wish to explain/defend yourself. I am not interested in your perspective. In other words, you are dead to me unless we need to decide how to literally bury you." I don't know how long I sat there after I finished reading. The coffee went cold. My hands went colder. At some point, the phone rang. I didn't answer. At some point, the sun moved. I didn't notice. What pulled me back was my own heart pounding so hard I thought I might be having a heart attack. I folded the pages carefully and set them on the table, like a bomb that might go off if I moved too fast. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I called my sisters. My older sister, Joan, answered on the second ring. "Hey, Lainey," she said. "You okay?" I blurted out. Silence. "Ah," she said finally. I repeated. "She sent us a copy," Joan said carefully. I asked, my voice rising. "She sent us a letter about her decision," Joan said. "She left out some of the details, but yeah." I felt like someone had opened a curtain and found me naked on stage. "I didn't even get a chance to respond," I said. "That's one way to put it," Joan said. My younger sister, Marie, called 15 minutes later. "Elaine, I just read it," she said, voice breaking. I asked. Marie hesitated. "It's intense," she said. "She's using a lot of therapy words." I looked at the phone like it might bite me. she asked. Apparently, that would violate her boundary, Marie said bitterly. The tears finally came then. Not gentle movie tears, the ugly kind. I thought we were getting better, I sobbed. Our last call, she was telling me about the kids' school. She sent me a picture of their Halloween costumes. Sometimes people build up to things with their therapist long before they say them out loud, Joan said slowly. I whispered. Joan sighed. You were our mother's daughter, she said. Not very good at feelings. We all laughed, a short, sharp sound. But you were not a monster, she added. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the words unsafe for her mental health scrolling behind my eyes like a stock ticker. My mind started flipping through memories like a Rolodex on fire. Times I yelled, times I shut her down, times I said, "Oh, come on, it's not that bad," when to her it was. There were more of those than I wanted to admit. There were also times I held her while she cried. Times I bit my tongue when she said something I thought was ridiculous because I didn't want to start a fight. None of that was in the letter. The letter was a museum of my failures, curated and framed. I thought about writing back anyway. I drafted whole paragraphs in my head. Dear Rachel, I am devastated. I'm not the woman you described. I'd imagine explaining my childhood, how no one ever asked me how I felt. In some drafts, I apologized. In others, I defended myself. In a few, I screamed. I pictured a sheriff showing up at my door with papers. The humiliation I could almost live with. The finality I could not. Because a harassment order isn't just a piece of paper. It's a nuclear bomb. My daughter had already declared me emotionally dangerous. Did I really want to risk adding legally to that? Weeks went by. I stuck the letter in a drawer, then took it back out so many times the edges started to curl. I'd catch myself walking toward the phone, then stop short, like there was police tape across the hallway. My hands knew her number as well as my own. My body knew the pattern of Rachel, the way it knew my own name. But every time, I pictured a judge reading a text in court. See? So I didn't call. I didn't text. I did nothing. It felt like abandoning her. It also felt like obeying her. That's the twisted part of this kind of thing. Doing nothing can be both loving and cowardly at the same time. My sisters checked in on me. Marie would ask. No, I'd say. I don't know, I'd answer, which was the truth and also a lie, because all I did was think about it. I went to a therapist of my own after my doctor suggested it. A young woman named Dr. Lee with kind eyes and a plant in her office that somehow seemed to be thriving. I'm here because my daughter's therapist has decided I'm bad for her mental health, I said in our first session. Dr. Lee smiled gently. I doubt they phrased it exactly that way. I pulled out the letter. She did, I said. We spent weeks unpacking that. Not just the letter, but the whole suitcase behind it. My childhood, my marriage, the years I parented with a tight budget and a tighter jaw. Lee would raise an eyebrow. She'd ask, "Your daughter says you minimized her feelings." I'd bristle. "I'm not a monster," I'd snap.
"I haven't said you are," she'd reply calmly. One day, she said something that cracked something open in me. "Your daughter's letter sounds like it was written to protect the child she used to be," she said. "I thought about that," she went on. "She is allowed to protect herself," Dr. Lee said. I asked bitterly. That, Dr. Lee said, might say more about her husband and the way they manage conflict than about you. I asked, "Do I honor this no contact?" She leaned forward. "Writing back," I said. "Calling, showing up. That she'd see I'm not the monster her therapist painted," I said. "She files a harassment order," I whispered. Dr. Lee nodded. A few days after that session, I did something that surprised even me. I wrote a letter. I did not send it. I wrote everything I wanted to say. "Dear Rachel, I read your letter. It broke my heart. Some of it felt unfair. Some of it felt too true. I am sorry for the times I made you feel small. I am sorry I laughed things off that felt big to you. I am not sorry for loving you. I am not sorry for the nights I stayed up until you came home, for the times I said no to drugs, no to sleepovers that felt wrong, no to boyfriends I knew would break you. I am not the one-dimensional villain in your therapist's office. I am a whole human being who bled for you, flawed and tired and trying. If someday you want to meet the woman I have become, not just the mother you remember, I will be here. Not banging on your door, not sending you articles about forgiveness, just here. You say I am unsafe for your mental health. Right now, maybe I am, because I represent a story you haven't finished telling yourself yet. I will not chase you. I will love you quietly, in therapy, in prayers, in the way I keep your baby pictures on the wall, even though it hurts to look at them. And if the day ever comes when you decide love is stronger than this letter, I hope you will call. I folded that letter and put it in the same drawer as the no contact one. 2 stories, side by side, the one my daughter tells about me, and the one I am still learning to tell about myself. It has been 18 months. I have not heard from her. No calls, no texts, no pictures of the children. I have seen them grow in the background of photos my sister finds on social media. They look like her. She looks like me. I look like my mother, who once told me I was too sensitive when I cried over being left out. Generational curses rarely wear name tags, but they're there if you squint. I don't know yet if I am making the right choice. That's the part nobody puts on inspirational quote pictures. You can do your best and still not know if it was right. But here is what I do know, and if you're in a similar place, maybe it will help. First, a no-contact letter is a scalpel, not a history book. It cuts out the parts of you that hurt, lines them up under bright office lights, and calls that the whole story. It is not the whole story. It is the part written by someone trying desperately to stop their own bleeding. You are allowed to read it and say, some of this is true, some of this is not. Second, loving your child does not always mean chasing them. Sometimes love is banging on the door. Sometimes love is sitting on the porch and waiting to see if they open it from the inside. If I showed up now, I would confirm every story she is telling herself about a mother who doesn't respect boundaries. So for now, I stay home. Not because I don't care, but because I care how the story ends. Third, you are allowed to heal even if your child thinks you are the villain. I go to therapy. I tell the truth about my life. I let myself feel the grief I used to swallow. I do not need my daughter's permission to become a softer, better version of myself, even if she never sees it. Fourth, you can love your child and still refuse to wear every label they stick on you. Those are big words. Sometimes they are accurate. Sometimes they are what happens when pain is looking for a name and your face is the easiest one to put on it. If you honestly know you have been cruel, get help.
If you honestly know you were flawed but trying, get help anyway. Not to win them back, to stop the hurt from spreading to anyone else, including yourself. And finally, love is not just what you did when they were 5. Love is also what you choose to do when they are 35 and writing you out of their life in bullet points. For me, for now, love looks like this. I keep my phone on. I keep my heart cracked open just enough for a ray of light to get through if she ever shines it my way. I talk to Dr. Lee instead of talking to Rachel's voicemail. I write letters I may never send. I tell the truth to women like you who know what it feels like to be both mother and ghost. And every night, before I fall asleep, I whisper into the quiet, "Good night, Rachel. I love you." Maybe she'll never hear it. Maybe she will, in some way I don't understand yet. Either way, it keeps me human. And after getting a letter that tried to define me as nothing but a hazard sign in my own child's story, remembering I am human might be the bravest thing I do.